things. What
Sure.
would you coach candidates on to be a better fit into your landscape?
So is this the qualified question essentially?
Yes.
So, it's interesting. This has become, anyways, a rather sensitive subject, especially on social media platforms like LinkedIn. It's a very common thread out there about the complaints of the rejection rates for qualified candidates, right? So there is a difference of feeling one is qualified as opposed to actually being qualified. Now, you have to approach this conversation cautiously because people can get upset, right? And many recruiters will complain, stop applying to jobs you're not qualified for. But I think before we segue into being qualified, being told you're not qualified is not necessarily a negative. It's not an insult, but feeling that you can do something or that you have the competency to do something and proving where you've done it before are very different. And that's really where the divide comes into play, right? Because you may have lots of transferable skill sets. You may have a background that could lead to being very successful in a role. The problem is most employers don't, at least at first, look for the transferable skill set candidates. They look for what they label as the ideal candidate. And if a certain period of time goes on where that ideal candidate doesn't come to the table, then they may shift focus to look at the transferable skill set. So case in point, if you're applying to a sales management opportunity, right, especially for a big company, especially if it's for a niche type of group, typically, unless you come from being a sales manager from a similar environment, probably from a competitor with a similar responsibility or scope of responsibilities, unless your background is that, most people are not going to call you qualified. That's not an insult. It doesn't mean that you're bad. And when we say don't apply for the opportunity, that's not a clear statement, right? No one's trying to limit opportunity. No one's trying to say to anyone, hey, you've put in enough years of experience. How dare you try to better yourself? That's not the point, right? So just to give you an example, right? So I've been recruiting for 11 years. For about a half of that time, 5-6 years, I was a recruitment leader, right? I had a team of 14 recruiters, and I ran the account, so on and so forth. So could you make the argument that if Comcast had an opportunity for a recruiting manager, would I be qualified? I'd like to think so, right? If they were to open an opportunity for a senior director or a VP, would I be qualified? Now, again, I'd like to think so, but in reality, no, probably not, right? And that's because I can accept the fact that if they are looking for an individual whose specific background is managing a national recruitment focus for a large-scale Fortune 500 as a corporate manager, that isn't my resume. It's just not. Whether I can or can't do the job is not relevant. I'm not qualified on paper, and I can accept that. So when it comes to being an ideal candidate or a rock star, there's a couple different ways to go about approaching why you feel you're a rock star and how to send that message. First and foremost is the resume, right? My recommendation here is that if you are applying to 40 or 50 jobs and you're doing so with the exact same resume, right there, something's probably wrong. In case in point, many people, HR, recruiters, hiring managers, they unfortunately look for keywords, right? Whether you agree that that's the right way to do it or not, it doesn't matter what's right, it matters what happens. A lot of times they scroll past your summary, your objective, your skill sets, which for whatever reason is the area many people put their qualifications in. A lot of times they scroll right past that and they go to their first job. First job, second job, third job. If based on what they see in those three employers doesn't match what they're looking for, you don't get a phone call. Again, that doesn't mean how they're going about recruiting is right. But until you're the one in the seat making the hiring decision, what's right is irrelevant. What works is important. So that's the first tip. When I say cater your resume, I do not mean fabricate. I do not mean lie. I do not mean send a false picture. But restructure the resume to be relevant to the job description that you are seeking. Case in point, let's say you are a sales manager and you're applying to a job and the job description says you'll be managing a team of 10 outside salespeople. And let's say you say to yourself, wow, that's the job I just finished doing for another company. I was managing 10 people. If it doesn't say in your resume, currently responsible for managing 10 outside sales reps, why? Just saying managing a sales team may not be enough. So that's the first tip, is cater a resume to truly be relevant to the skill sets, and keeping in mind, these days, actual corporate experience or real world experience is likely going to override competency, soft skills, or education even, right? They're looking for someone who can hit the ground running. Again, the rock star division. Now, everyone's going to need some form of training, but some companies are only positioned to give a certain type of training. Basically taking a person who knows what they're doing, but training them how to do it here. Which is why if you've never done it before, in order for them to mitigate risk, they may not decide to move on you, whether you're capable or not. It's a bigger risk to hire someone. Never mind hire someone externally over promoting one of your own if their resume is not truly in line with what you're looking for.
Great. That's great advice. Thank you, John.